No, not really. During high school I did do some AutoCAD, but it was all 2D modeling, and it's really nothing on the same scale as what we've been doing this so far this year. And I think more my constant use of computers rather than the actual modeling I did in high school really helped me, rather than AutoCAD seems kind of redundant now in comparison to what we're learning and using today. Well, like I said, I haven't really had much experience with, I haven't had any experience with Crysis before now, but in the first semester I did use 3ds Max for a short period of time, as well as SolidWorks and SketchUp. I've probably completed most of my work so far with SketchUp. I think, I probably definitely prefer 3ds Max with the results it gives, especially when it comes to rendering. Like, even with V-Ray for SketchUp, it still doesn't really compare. Like, with lighting aspects, etc., it's just much better. Although I have heard that SketchUp for V-Ray, if you do the right things, it can get pretty close results to what 3ds has. Again, I guess it ties in with being from 3ds camp to an extent. I liked 3ds better than SketchUp because of the results it gives. So I found myself liking the workflow for 3ds more familiar, and hence I found it easier. The SketchUp one I think it had like 16 steps. I suppose in total that's not that many, but I think, I'm not exactly sure how much the 3ds workflow or SolidWorks with the SolidWorks part attached to it would actually be, but yeah, I think it's because I like 3ds Max, or sort of found it easier to navigate, change the files over, save it, etc. Especially with that plugin exporter, it was much easier rather than having to change the file type from a KMZ to a zip, and then changing the files and then going through the editor and changing the textures that map onto it. I thought it was a bit silly. The advantages of using the workflow, probably, 3ds workflow, was probably that I found it a lot quicker and easier. Not that changing it to a zip file was hard or anything, it was just, if you save everything in the right file with the 3ds workflow, everything pops up into the one file, it's all handy, it's all ready to go. I think, being the kind of person I am, I definitely prefer that rather than having to muck around. I'd probably recommend to go what you're comfortable with. If you're comfortable with SketchUp, well then you should stick with it. There's no point in trying to learn a whole new program for no reason when the job doesn't really require. I think the results from the 3ds workflow were a bit better in terms of texturing, and there was more control over this. Whatever floats your boat. If you like SketchUp and you're used to it, and your job doesn't require a huge amount of faces, that's another thing I didn't actually touch on earlier, is if you have like really complex objects, 3ds can actually handle it, the 3ds workflow that is. But the SketchUp, when it comes into like thousands of triangles or polygons that make up a shape, like a complex shape like a kettle or something, like, it struggles and actually doesn't work sometimes, or you get faces that are there but you can walk straight through it, or you can walk on one side of a platform and then all of a sudden you just start falling through it and stuff like that. Also with the SketchUp, I found that if you have any single lines or anything, just the whole thing won't work, so you have to go over meticulous. Like, you have to check everything on it, and it's, yeah. But I recommend, if you're doing something simple, use the SketchUp. You used it for ages, prefer it over 3ds, go SketchUp. But anything complex, or yeah, I'd just say anything complex, thousands and thousands of faces, etc. I'd definitely go 3ds because it can actually handle it, unlike SketchUp.